Hello and welcome to today's video. So I know it's been a little while since I've posted on my channel, but that's what happens when you have a kid who goes to school. They bring back bugs and they tend to affect you worse than they affect them. So I have been sick over the last little while. You may still hear it in my voice, but I have a lot to share with you, so I wanted to get some videos recorded. The other thing I want to mention is the baby is awake. She is in the background. She is playing with some of her toys, so you may hear her talking or you may hear some jingles and jangles, but that is what that is. So today we are going to do another installment of my Single Mingle series. If you are new to this series, this is my way of rotating through my single shadows and just having fun with them and just experimenting with some different color combinations. What I do is I use a random number generator to select 6 shades from one of my boards, and then I select 3 shades to go along with them. So this here is the palette that was created in the last round. If you want to see swatches of these colors and know more about the brands and finishes, I encourage you to go to the previous video and you will be able to see when I picked them there, also my reasoning for the shades that I selected. But for now what we're going to do is I'm going to talk to you about these shades, how it was working with this color story together, if I had any favorites, any non-favorites, etc. I will be posting a picture of all the brands and colors in case you're interested, and then I will be sharing the 5 looks that I created using these colors. So before I get into talking about the individual shades, here is the picture of the brands and shade names in case you are interested, and then now let's talk about these shadows. So if you watched the previous video, you will know that once the first 6 shades were selected randomly, I had a hard time picking my 3 shades based on the color story that was developing, and I did end up picking these ones down here to go along with the first 6. And I have to say, I actually really enjoyed playing with this group of colors. You'll see in the 5 looks that I'm going to share with you in a minute, I feel like I got a really good variety of looks. You wouldn't think, looking at them, that these colors would go together, but there was enough that kind of matched with each other that I was able to create 5 distinct looks that I think still ended up looking really nice individually, but none of them ended up looking too similar to each other. So it was a really good variety, I felt. My standout shades, I mentioned this in the last round because this color here was also selected then. I really enjoyed this kind of pastel mint from Menagerie Cosmetics. This was my first time using the pastel orange, also from Menagerie Cosmetics. I did enjoy that. I think I have one other pastel from their pastel collection, but I'm really enjoying the formula and just the amount of color that you get from them. They are brighter pastels, at least on my fair skin tone. This color here was quite pretty. This was a perfect inner corner highlight. It just made my inner corner glow. This shade here is not one of my favorite types of green, but the shadow itself is fine. And then the same thing with these Lethal Cosmetics shades. They were fine. So overall, all of the shades they performed really well, and I feel like I was able to mix them together quite nicely. I don't really have anything bad to say about the individual shadows or the color groupings. So next, let's get into the 5 looks that I created. So let's get started with the first look. So for the first look, I really wanted to try and do something with the greens and the purples together. So first I started with this shade here in kind of my upper transition. I used the purple on my inner transition. I used this green here to deepen the outer corner just a little bit. I went in all over the lid with this shimmer, and then I used this shade here for my inner corner. For the second look, I wanted to play with the more peachy shades and the coral shades, so I started the look off with this shade here in my transition. I used this shade here in the upper transition going towards my brow bone. I used this shade here to deepen the outer corner. I used this shade all over my lid, and then I used this shade for my inner corner. For the next look, I wanted to play with this matte purple. One of the things I really enjoy when I want to do a super simple look is just pick a matte, kind of a lighter toned matte, put it all over the lid, pick one color for the inner corner, and then do just like an accent wing, and so that's kind of what I did here. I started with this shade here in my transition lightly. I built it up over my lid. I used this shade to deepen the outer corner just a tiny bit, and then I used this shade here for my inner corner, as well as I brought it down on my lower lash line as well. I popped on a black liquid liner for a wing, and that was that. For the fourth look, I wanted to focus more on the green tones. So kind of similar to the purple look, I went in with this shade here in my transition and built it up in my crease. I used this shade here just to deepen the outer corner just a little bit. And then I used this shade all over my lid as well as my inner corner and a little bit on my lower lash line. So for the final look, I really wanted to combine the kind of purple metallic here with the peachy shade. Because this shade has a really strong kind of golden pinky peach shift, I thought it would look really pretty together. So first I went in with this shade here for my transition area. I added this shade here to the upper area going towards my brow bone. I used this shade here to deepen the outer corner just a teeny tiny bit. I went all over the lid with this shade here, and then I used this shade for my inner corner. So that was it for the 5 looks. I hope you enjoyed that. I'd love to know if you had a favorite. I'd also love to know what kind of colors you would have put together if you were working with this palette. So next, I'm going to put these shadows back on their board and get the random number generator all set up so that we can pick a new batch of numbers. Okay, so here we go. I've got the generator set up between 1 and 119. I will be using my big shadow board. Again, for this round, you will see a picture of that on the left, and you may notice that I've got all the spaces filled now. I've done some depotting, so now I have a nice full board to draw from, and I cannot wait to see what colors will be picked. So I'm going to generate those first 6 numbers, and then we'll see what we get for me to add to. There we go. You can see the numbers. You'll be able to find them on the picture board. I'm going to go grab them and we'll see what we have. So here we have the first 6 shades, and there's kind of something interesting going on here. We have a little kind of cool toned quadrant starting over there, and then some warmer tones over here. So again, as usual, I'm going to pop off. I'm going to kind of look at what I have, kind of figure out what I'm going to need to create some looks. This I know is going to be a really pretty inner corner highlight. It's one of those shades that looks white, but it has a purple flip to it. And then this being a matte dark purple, those two are going to go really nicely together. This will probably work as a deepening shade. This will work as an inner corner highlight. What I'm thinking I'm going to need to look for is some transition tones, because the 2 mattes that I have right now are in the deeper range. So I'm probably going to be looking for some transition shades and some lighter colored metallics. All the metallics, like these two, this is a metallic, this is a metallic. Those are 2 very dark colors. I don't usually like a dark metallic on my lid, so I'm going to want something a little bit brighter. This is kind of a mid-tone metallic. This one, like I said, would work really well for the inner corner. So yeah, I think I'm going to be looking for some transition shades and then some lighter metallics to kind of go along with this color story. So I'm going to go and see what I can do, and then I will be back to share what I decided on. Okay, so I'm back with my 3 choices, and I think I'm pretty happy with these. It did not take me nearly as long to select these 3 shades as it did to select the 3 shades from the previous palette. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to swatch all these shades so that if you want to play along, you can look through your collection and find some things that are similar. And then I'm going to put them back in the palette, and I'm going to talk about why I made the choices I did. So let's start with that first row up top. So here is that first row. We have Dark Seas from Tarte. This is one of their single shades. We have Muscle Beach from ColourPop, and then Chocolate Berry from Coastal Scents. On the hand, blended out, you can see that Dark Seas is kind of a deeper metallic navy blue. Muscle Beach is a mid-tone kind of Kelly green, and then Chocolate Berry is, it's more of a satin. I wouldn't call it a really vibrant metallic, but it's kind of a brown-based purpley shade. And here we have the next row. So here we have Deep Grape from Coastal Scents. This is a shade that I depotted from the KVD holographic kind of highlight palette. I believe it was the Amethyst one. It's the one with the purple shift. And then over here we have a Deep Cantaloupe, also from Coastal Scents. And blended out on the hand, Deep Grape over here is a dark purple. It's kind of sheer. I had to build that up quite a bit. So a sheer dark matte purple. The Amethyst in the center is, it's like that white base with a violet reflect. And then Deep Cantaloupe on the end there is a metallic orange with a golden shift. And now for the final row, these are my selections. We have a Lilac Blue here from Shine by SD. We have a color that I depotted from the first Alamar palette. It's that green gold that everybody just lost their poop over. Anytime you see someone talk about that palette, it's their favorite shade in the palette. So that is that shade there. And then finally over here we have Spicy from AOA Studios, and this is one of the shades from their Date Night palette. Here they are blended out. So Lilac Blue is kind of a bluey purple shifty shade. We have the middle shade there from Alamar, which is that green gold metallic, and then the matte orange, burnt orange type shade from AOA Spicy. So I've got everything back in the palette now, and let's talk about this color story for a little bit. So with the first 6 shades chosen, I know I mentioned that I was probably going to want to look for some transition shades, but when I swatched out these 2 mattes in particular, they were much more sheer than they look in the pan, so I think they will work as transition shades if I wanted to do a more cool tone look. So the only transition shade that I ended up picking was this one here, because I felt with these being the only 2 kind of warm tone shadows that were picked, I was going to need something to kind of coordinate with those, and I could really see using this kind of burnt orange and then this on the lid. And even though that this is kind of a satin shade, I wouldn't call it a true metallic. I think I can use this to deepen up the outer corner. I don't mind using shimmers and satins in places where typically mattes are used, so even though that's a satin, I feel like I can use that to kind of deepen things up. The next 2 choices that I made were over here, and the reason I pulled this purple, this was another color originally, but I decided to go with this kind of vibrant blurple shade, and it's mainly to help me use this shade here. If you've watched any of my videos in the past, you will know that these dark blue shades are just not my jam, as well as I don't typically reach for darker metallics for my lid. I really prefer a light metallic on my lid. So because this is such a dark metallic blue, I thought this shade might work really well to kind of brighten that up. So maybe I could try doing like a halo eye or something like that, but layering this on top of this might take away that more blue tone of it and give me more of the purple look that I really like. And then finally this shade here, I felt like I needed one more tone to kind of go with these warmer shades, and I just really love this color. So I mentioned in the swatches that this is a color that I depotted from the very first Alamar Cosmetics palette. I received it in a BoxyCharm, and eventually, as much as I liked the palette, it was more the metallics in that palette that I was really reaching for, specifically this shade. This was always the shade that I was reaching for. So I decided, instead of having a whole palette for just the one shade, I kind of depotted the maybe 2 shades, the 2 metallics that I really liked, and I added them to my singles board. So this is just such a pretty, like, it's a gold, but it has kind of a greenish cast to it, and I thought it would pair really nicely with these guys over here, like maybe to, to highlight the center of the lid or as an inner corner, but it also might be an interesting contrast to use with these shades here. I just decided to go with these two instead of another transition shade because I felt like I could kind of work with the mattes that I had. So overall, I think this is a pretty interesting color story. I'm kind of excited to work with it. It's still kind of bright and vibrant, which is what I like. The colors are mostly what I like, the purples. This shade here is going to work really well as an inner corner highlight as well. There's only one green, but I think I can kind of blend those with the purple. I think green and purple go really well together. So I can kind of already see the looks that might come out of this. So overall, I am excited to kind of get in here and see what I can do with it. So as always, I would love to know what types of shades you would have picked to go with those first 6 that were chosen, and what kind of combinations would you do with this palette. So I think that is it for now. I'm going to be popping up a picture with all the shade names in case that's something that you're interested in. But otherwise, I hope you have a fabulous day, and I will see you in the next one.